Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, where we break mental health stigmas through conversations. I'm your host, Nat Nat, and we dive into topics about trauma and how it impacts the nervous system. Yet we don't just leave you there. We share insights and tools of self-care, meditation, and growth that help you be curious about your own biology. Your presence matters. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. Help our community grow. Let's get into this. Oh, and please remember to be kind to yourself. Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast. I'm your host, Nat Nat, and I have a wonderful guest that is a delight. And I am so thankful that he is gracing our audience and our listeners, and I get to engage with him. Jason, can you let the listeners know a little bit about you and, what we're going to speak about today?
Absolutely. Thank you, first of all, for having me on the show. I'm Jason Zook. I'm the social psychic. Nat, it's such a pleasure talking to you today and your audience. I have been an intuitive psychic medium probably my whole life. My grandfather passed away in 2004. When he did, orbs of light came to me in a hotel room. And the rest of my opportunity to be an open psychic over time is what happened. It took 10 years to become more open about it. I had to overcome my own things in my own mind about what a psychic is and what a lawyer is and how does that all fit. And what I realized is things fit nicely when you just allow things to flow. If you try to force things into the respective positions, you're going to have resistance within yourself and from without in society and beyond. And I think if you allow things to flow and you do things in a certain way, your truths will come through in authenticity, and you can be, I have had, as I was telling you earlier, my schedule varies between my three roles of a podcaster, psychic, and a lawyer. And I feel like this is my time. Just like we all have our time that we feel the comfort of things. I would just tell anyone in the audience, if you ever feel like it's not your time, it's going to come. You'll have everything that flows together really nicely. And as a psychic, I've enjoyed that, after struggling internally at first. I'm at peace with myself and my own authentic aspects of things to be who I am, a psychic, a lawyer, and a podcaster. I also like the idea of doing production work down the road, but the lawyer work is what is very pressing right now in my day job, as I'll call it. And then I do the other things around it, call it. And then I do the other things around it.
Well, before we get into the conversation, would you join me in a mindful moment so that we can ground ourselves and connect in our hearts?
Absolutely.
And for the listeners, as you always hear my spiel, safety first. If you're driving or if you are needing your visual, please don't close your eyes. Yet the other prompts you can follow. So, Jason, I'll ask you to get comfortable in your seating and you're going to gently close your eyes. And you're going to begin breathing in and out through your nose, bringing your awareness to watching your breath go in and out. You're not going to try and control your breath. You're just going to be aware of its rhythm, allowing it to guide you into your body. There may be sensations or feelings coming up. It's okay, let them come up. You're safe to feel. You're safe to let go. Surrender the need to control. Release the need to resist and just be. Be with your breath. Drop deeper into your body. There may be thoughts or to-do lists that have popped up in your mind, and that's okay. Gently bring your awareness back to your breath, creating space between the awareness and the thoughts, and dropping deeper into your body. Just being with the breath. Again, more thoughts may have popped up. That's okay. Just bring your awareness back to your breath. Beginning again, creating even more space between the thoughts and the awareness, and dropping deeper into your body. Just be with the breath. Now, at your own time and at your own pace, you're going to gently open your eyes while staying with the breath. How's your heart doing?
I will just tell you that's That was beautiful. I love meditation. My heart feels it just feels so grounded right now. And I love the way you say let things go, feel the flow. It's exactly it was very pleasant just to ground ourselves like that at the beginning of this.
Thank you. You know, when I introduced this about a year ago onto the podcast, it was a little unnerving. Yet it was like, instead of telling people to meditate and what the benefits, bring it into the podcast so people can take this 2 minutes and see like how profound it is to take those moments for yourself. And like you said, it's like sitting in the confidence of just being you and letting people join if they want to join, and if they don't, it's okay. Yet you understand, the flow of life. You mentioned psychic lawyer podcasts. So I know some people are like, what do you, that's like all totally opposite, analytical, open flowing connection. Yet if you really look, it almost sounds like mind, body, and soul. So can you explain a little bit how you got into, your gift of being intuitive and psychic, and what that means for you and how you've defined it for yourself?
It runs in my family is the easiest way to say it. It's genetic in part, but because my grandmother was very, very psychic in her lifetime, my mom, other relatives of mine, I just happened to, I think, have the blessing that I understood that being intuitive isn't something that we necessarily sign up for. It's just a part of us. Some people have awesome vision. Some people can play music well. Some are performing athletes. I have to be intuitive and I can pick up energy. And my whole life, I never really thought much about it till my 20s when I started having premonitions and idiosyncratic synchronicities, I'll call it. Like, getting in someone's car and we go for a ride, and next thing you know, I'm grabbing the steering wheel, trying to keep us from hitting a truck that's coming off the angle we didn't see beforehand, or just in life itself, the journey I've been. We all have these journeys, and it's whether or not we accept the task at hand, right? To be an intuitive psychic. For me, it was the battle of if everything fits so well in a role in society, like being an attorney, why would you make your life that much more challenging to let people know you're psychic? And I flip that around and I say, live at your full reach, live at your full potential, rather than worry or fear that someone's going to misjudge you or look at you critically for something they think doesn't fit. Doesn't mean that you have to not allow it to fit. And in my own life, I've done all three to the best of my ability. I'm ranked number one as a psychic here in Tampa without even trying. And then as a lawyer, I've been doing it for 15 years, licensed in 5 states. And then even as a podcaster, my show. So it's like when you get to do three different things that are, like you said, all it seems like it's all over the spectrum. But then I realized as of soon as this year, is all three things that I've been doing, I do it above average. I do it in a way where my passion comes through and I enjoy it a lot. So I have to ground myself. That grounding exercise we did a few minutes ago is what I do for myself when I get excited. I'll go for walks. Things that I can do to live in the present moment are important. So even though if you have some intuitive abilities, the point I'm trying to say is it's part of who we are. And for me to explain that I have these different roles, it's like someone saying, I'm a mom, I'm a doctor, and I run a company. Like people have different roles they do. Mine just happen to be somewhat with the intuitive side mixed into the legal and creative.
When did you start discovering the intuitive part in you?
I remember as a little child, I came from a single parent family in New Jersey, and my grandmother used to watch me at the time when my mom was teaching or was at work. And I remember like saying to my grandmother, I've been here before, deja vu. I feel like everything we're going through today, I can sense, I can see things. And I would say things before they happened. And I just remember at an early age, I was told, don't talk about that to, people in your life unless they understand it. So early in my life, I knew there was semblance of something. Uh, Prophetic dreams, like when you pick up dreams before they happen of things, like, but some, I've had those happen over the years. And then it just became more prevalent around the death of my grandfather. When he died, I always had a premonition that the day he died, I'd be by myself with no one to console me. Well, the day he actually passed, I was in Wisconsin doing a deposition on a work trip, and I had no one around me to console me. But what was left out of that premonition was my grandfather consoled me. The orbs of light that came in the room told me everything's going to be fine, son. Don't worry about me. I love you. I'm always going to be with you. I leaned into it. And from then on, I had my first mediumship experience that night with one of my best friend's grandmothers who had been passed away a few months earlier. And yeah, I slept with the lights on for 10 years out of initially not knowing how this all fits together. But then once I got through that process, being spiritual is like breathing. And I think air has, our breath has a lot to do with our spirituality. Like when you meditate or when you pray or whatever it is. And so it's just second nature to me at this point. But I've known my whole life.
Now, you mentioned mediumship. So, being able to communicate with your grandfather and that you held space for your friend and their grandmother. For some of the listeners, they may be, what are you talking about? Others will be like, oh, tell me more, because I know what this other side of love is. Can you explain what that is and how well, it's your grandfather that brought you into further into your gift, yet how
Yeah.
have you evolved in it?
Absolutely. For anyone skeptical listening to this, I'll just say close your eyes like you did a few minutes ago. And if you can breathe, you can pick up on the other side. Our breath and our love are what connect us. Like the breath is the vehicle, love is the umbilical cord. And so for anyone who's skeptical that they can't communicate with their deceased loved ones through dreams, I'll say it's like this. It's like synchronicity is a very strong natural force a lot of us don't even know about. It's like the invisible, subtle Wi-Fi signal that we have to put the pieces together and understand it. But for me, it goes like this. Um, let's say in a morning, I'll give you an example. A couple years ago during the pandemic, I remember I was really stressed out about finances, like a lot of us were. And my grandfather came to me in a dream and he said, son, tomorrow, when you get up, and I'm working from my house, when you get up, I want you to zoom out and pay attention to things that are on your plate. I was like, all right. So I woke up, I'm looking around like something's going to happen. Nothing, of course. And throughout my day, I had two new signups for my law firm, two new guests for my show, and two requests for psychic readings. And the last one came in at 2:22 p.m. And so I was like, okay, that's rather interesting. And then I zoomed out and I realized no matter how worried or stressed we can be about our present situations, you have to see everything. You've got to take the ability to pretend like you're on your iPhone to put the setting out where you zoom out the furthest. And when you zoom out, you're going to realize that half of our fear, half of our anxiety, whatever it is, it's within ourselves. It's not a real thing out there. And so for me personally, my grandfather has been a sign of reassurance. I get pennies from heaven in random places and spots when I'm trying to make decisions in life. And my grandfather will come to me in a dream. Later on, I'll get a penny. And then later on, I'll get something like an angel number, 1111, 111, 222. And it's the culmination of all those things taken together. How, when you think about something, your deceased loved one comes to you in a dream, then they send you a penny, then you'll see an angel number. Those are all confirming things. But if we look at them in a vacuum, we'll say, oh, weird numbers. Oh, a penny could happen from anybody. But it's how you look at it and piece it all together. It's like breadcrumbs, spiritual breadcrumbs that you can connect the dots and get messages from our loved ones. And that's one of the things I've learned about in the last 20 years from communicating with my grandfather, my father, my aunt who died. I have more than just one relative. And then also when I give readings to people, the spiritual breadcrumbs that come through a reading, and it's very enlightening. And it's something that now I look at 20 years later. Yeah, my life's been a little interesting in the respect of having all these things happen that a skeptic might say, that doesn't make any sense. But I'm not here to persuade the skeptics. I'm here to validate the people who have the experiences like I'm describing, who don't know what they are. And those experiences can validate someone from either grieving, being depressed, being scared. And that's where I feel our true power comes, is helping comforting somebody who doesn't have that comfort by allowing them to see these kind of things that I pick up on.
Okay, so now you're in this, and it sounds like you're in the seat of worth and in your confidence. Like you can feel the electrical joy of being you. Like you really can feel it. It's like I can feel how palpable that is. I'm sure it wasn't always there. So, what did that journey look like to really sit in the seat of your life, in your gifts, and being in that confidence?
What a great question. I want to say this. Mental health is big for me. Mental health awareness is big for me. I know after the last several years we've had, the uncertainty we're going through now and the society that we're in, we have these events that are outside of our control, be it nature, elections, whatever. And I'll just say that for me, having the ability to find some type of pattern, some type of understanding amidst all these things that are like topsy-turvy, that's been the thing for my gifts or my abilities that I like the most is I can pierce through things and see beyond things and sense something to make normalcy out of things that don't seem normal at all or that don't make sense and don't add up. And I will just tell anyone who has a mental health struggle, because I have my own in my life, and I do every day what I can to maximize my life. Meaning, I'll wake up, I'll meditate, I'll go for a walk. If I go through a moment where I feel sad or depressed about something, I'll feel that too. I've gone through a healing journey the last couple of years. I found out I was a child of trauma. Didn't know that. It was like, nice to meet you, Jason. Didn't know that this side of you as your child, that you went through all these things, that they were there. But that healing journey woke me up on a deeper level. And it also made me realize that, sure, I could have this day, these different roles I do in life. But for myself, when I struggle with a mental health issue, I always bring light to it and understand it, honor it, and realize we all struggle every day. So in response to your question, and how am I I'm more confident. Yep, I'm happy. I love what I do. I still deal with my own challenges and struggles inside, like most of us do.
I think, the reason why I do the work that I do is holding space and allowing people to feel in a world that it feels so threatening to feel your emotions and that you're supposed to just be something other and portray, this sense of strength. It's like, well, when you allow yourself to feel your array of emotions, I think that's where the confidence comes that you start to recognize, oh, the journey I've been looking for is home inside my body and creating safety. And the authentic, where everybody's like, I want to be my authentic self, with means you're going to have to feel your authentic emotions and not do a la carte of, I just want to be happy and everything is just so blissful. It's like, you're going to have helplessness, you're going to have grief, you're going to have fear, all these different arrays. It's just remembering not to identify with it. And
I want
so,
to
pardon?
sorry. I want to add something when you're done. I'm sorry to interrupt
Go
you.
ahead, go ahead.
Authenticity can be one of the most uncomfortable and messiest things we go through. Unpredictable. I've had relationships with people I've severed over the years because they weren't living up to their authentic self with me, and I felt that and I knew it and I had to move forward. And it can be very this year. I've been through a lot of upheaval before, we got into February. My mom fell, broke her arm, moved in with me. I switched job stuff and that created a vacuum for a while. And then I realized everything happens for a reason, no matter how you look at it, how you see it. And now I'm cherishing every moment I have with my mom because she's not going to be here forever. And a lot of people look at their parents and worry about when their parent crosses over. And I'll say, look, spend time with your parent now if you can. Even if they may not need to live with you, spend the time with them. Give them that opportunity. Like I bought a recorder thing that my mom's going to record and let her have her voice to talk about her life in her own way. And I'm going to use that as a creative passion of mine down the road. I think we should do stuff like that for our elders. Give them that respect. And I'm saying not every day is easy, but being authentic to yourself is doing things uncomfortable and trusting that in the end, everything's going to come together the way it needs to.
And I think there's honesty. Honesty requires that messiness that, what, you're not going to know what you're doing all the time. Sometimes the emotions triggers are going to be there, yet it's being there for yourself. And like we did at the beginning, take a breath, regulate yourself, feel whatever you need to feel so that you can see what's presently in front of you and not be stuck in that head of ours that tries to control past and future. It's like, no, no, come back into the body, be present in the now, which your breath is always in. I want to ask you this part. So because you're in your gift of intuition, you're in your gift of mediumship of being able to communicate on the other side of love. Your mother is on this side of love. How do you think you will be in the experience when if you might be you before, yet if you're
Oh yeah.
still on this side, what do you think that will look like for you going through that experience of that transition, knowing
You
what you
just
know?
Yeah, and interestingly enough, and this is me being a human, full disclosure, for full authenticity. That's gonna be one of the toughest days of my life. I'm gonna tell you why. My mom's my best friend. And coming from a single parent family, I was a sick child with pneumonia 9 times, almost put in one of those bubbles. Way back when, as an infant, my mom went through all those sacrifices with me as a sick baby, and our journey together all these years. As most single parents know, they struggle financially, and then they struggle through everything else until everything gets stable, and then hopefully at that point you can reciprocate and give back. But nonetheless, it's going to be one of the toughest parts of my. I haven't. I'll tell you this: as a psychic, my mom's also intuitive. My grandfather's come to me since she's moved in, and he'll come to me in a dream, and then I wake up and I'll go talk to her because she's on the couch in the living room when I get up in the morning. She'll be like, "Oh, I had the most amazing dream with grandpa." I was like, "Oh, wait, me too." And my grandfather told me, and my mom believes the same thing. We both believe, God willing, knock on wood, that she'll minimally live another 3 years, that she's 78 in December, that she'll live to her early 80s like my grandfather did. And he's come back several times to kind of let us know that. So she and I are both under the preparation that in 3 years or so, God willing, that's the time we have together. I got time to prepare. She's got time to prepare. But I also know the way my grandfather is with me, she's never leaving me. She's always gonna lecture, she's always gonna pop in at the right moments and give me the advice and that feedback I need, even on the other side. I get it now from my grandfather, my dad, and others. And I know she'll be one of those pivotal forces, but it's gonna be a challenge for me. It's like you look at your own life in respect to those you love when they cross over, and you got to realize that there is a letting go part of our physical meat bodies, as I'll call, or our physical bodies here are like our costumes here that we wear, that our avatars. But then when we cross over, the beauty of that is love holds us all together. They can zoom in on us and watch us like we're their reality show. And for us, it's like we have to recognize those blessings in order to receive them and cherish and appreciate. So for me, the short answer to your question, it's going to be a really hard time for me when that happens. But I also know I'm going to be getting her all the time. So it's like what you don't get in physical form, you'll get in spiritual form. But you gotta just know that there's an ascension that occurs when we die. We're not dust in the wind. We cross over, we ascend. It's like graduating, and we're on the other side with everyone else, and then we get to be connected with them from here.
Thank you for that honesty. Because, it's one thing knowing something. I have a friend that I have been supporting through her pancreatic cancer journey. And 2 weeks ago, we got into a medical crisis in the ER, and DNR conversations were there. And it didn't look good at all. And so when I finally came out of the room, because I'd been with her for like 9 hours straight, and I just saw her body go through something really traumatic. When I came out of the room, I just allowed myself to just weep. And I'm usually the one that people come to weep with, yet I allowed that space. And then they were like, hey, come on. And going through the ER and seeing that my tears were creating like uncomfortableness to people in the ER waiting to go into these rooms. And then when I got outside, I just dropped on the pavement and I just screamed from the bottom of my belly. Just let that animalistic part out of that helplessness, that uncontrol. Security surrounded us, and my friend was like, no, it's okay. And then they were like, okay, let's walk. And while we were walking down the ramp, I turned to my head and I could see the sunset, and it was so beautiful. And in my weeping, I'm like, look how beautiful the sunset is. And it gave me a bit of, get off the ground, be in the groundless. Like you're too much tethered into the human part, and you're not feeling the fear. The fear is stopping you. And I let myself feel that humanness part and release, and then got back and went back in there, and she came back online, and she was released on Friday, did her first new treatment Tuesday, and is doing well. So
Wow.
it does a bit of a mind fuck to your mind, because you're like, I felt all this like it was grief and we weren't going to be there, yet you're still here. And that it happened the Monday. The Tuesday I had a massage schedule and I was going to cancel, but I was like, no, you got to take care of yourself. And so I went, and the person said, it sounds like you're not ready for her to leave. And I said, no, I'm not. And in that massage, I reflected on that, and it was like, you know better. That's just fear. you know that you'll still be able to communicate with her. You have to let go of the fear so that you can have the courage to show up right now in the living. And it was very profound. Doesn't mean that like it's not challenging and difficult. Like when we did treatment on Tuesday, one of the nurses asked how I was, and I shedded some tears, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, and sorry." And then my friend's like, "Everything's going to be okay." And I was like, "I know it is, yet I can be vulnerable. I can feel my emotions and still be okay and hold, the space and everything else." So I thank you for that honesty, because sometimes people can do that performative and stoicism, and maybe, they're able to recognize that and not go through the grief in that manner. I just appreciate the honesty so other people can relate and not attack themselves that, oh, I had emotions. It's like, yeah, that's what love is. Like that's what
We need
human.
emotions. We need those emotions. And as you just said that, I was thinking back how we all have that inner child inside ourselves, that 8-year-old that's terrified when things become not as easy to understand, things don't fit nicely and neatly. When you deal with illness, I had cancer in 2018. It was stage 1 only, thank God, but it jostled my world and changed who I am profoundly. Every day is, a new beginning for us. And with your friend, my heart goes out to you because I know how gut-wrenching, how hard that can be, and how painful. And I can tell you that the best thing you're doing is letting it out. The best thing you're doing is able to communicate it. But then you're able to see that sunset. And that sunset's showing you that it's okay. It's like a pat on the back spiritually. It's okay. You're going to be okay going forward. Just know that. And that's a consistency, right? Because the sun sets regularly each night, whether the clouds are up, a hurricane's out there, or something else. That sun's always going to set and that sun's always going to rise back up. And once you look at that, that's like God's way of reassuring you that even though you feel this unpredictability and this fear and all these other things, when it all comes together, you'll have peace later in the future. You're not going to feel that disruptive, those chaotic feelings. It's gonna settle down. And your friend, I think she's extremely lucky to have you. I will just say this: one of my greatest fears of life, my whole life, was that I'll be alone. And during the pandemic, I was alone a lot. And even now, yeah, my mom lives with me. I love it. But in the future, I'll be alone again. And it's like sometimes you got to deal with your own fears by taking them head on and tackling them and surrounding yourself with people who love you, surrounding yourself. We all have that quest, right? And it's not always easily to put together. You're going to have moments where you want to lay down on the floor, kick your knees up and scream like you're having one of those episodes, but at the same time, that's what makes us part of the human experience too. I feel that I wouldn't want to be a stoic Spartan, the 300, one of those people that has no emotions. Like I think one of my greatest things, at least that I've understood and really appreciate, is the fact that I can tap into my emotions and be real about it, and then let them sit within me, and then utilize that to hopefully learn from and heal from.
What I was how I was describing it to people, it was like I have the stoicism, yet I have the vulnerability too. And they're both blended together. It's not picking one or the other. It's not suppressing my emotions and being strong, and it's not being vulnerable and not being able to do anything. It was blending the two together. So thank you. And I keep hearing how lucky she is, yet I'm lucky also to be able
Absolutely.
to walk that journey and develop the courage, develop the courage to still look in the fragility of life, really understand the unknown and uncertainty, and see death for what it is, that it's there to spark you to live in the moment. And it's electrifying, it's palpable, it's a beautiful gift. So I'm thankful for it. I want to bring you into a reflective question. I want to ask you to bring this awareness right now and to go back to your 18-year-old self. And you have 3 words to tell your 18-year-old self to carry you to the journey right now. What would those words be?
Confidence, consistency. I get the word careful, meaning like be careful how I navigate through life's challenges, but be confident and consistent with myself, like not to fear things. And I know they all came out with, C's for whatever reason, but that's what I'm picking up on, to be consistent with myself, not to fear anything, and to be able to look at everything and keep going and not and not reflect on it in a negative way. If I was 18 right now, that's the most important thing I'd say to myself is whenever you get those people that try to be negative towards you, whenever you get somebody who says you can't do this, whenever you get somebody who says you failed or you suck, whatever it is people try to throw at us, learning not to let that criticism be baked into yourself, right? We all have those things where we fear, we have self-fulfilling, self-defeating thoughts, self-sabotaging, all those things. And I think when you're 18 versus when you're, say, I'm 49 right now, 30, 40 years later, 30 years later, it makes you appreciate like what's ahead for you because you can see looking back on it. If any of us can look back on our life and see ourselves from that stage to now, I know it would be like, oh my, I would be your coach. To myself, I'd be my own coach. I'd be, you could do this, you could do this, and allow yourself to enjoy that journey and take risks. Because I was one of those people that didn't want to rock the boat too much when I was younger. I wanted to do everything, fit into all the roles I had to do, be an overachiever, do everything the best way I could, but I didn't want to rock the boat. Now I would rock the boat a little more and not fear that. I would take some risks and I'd be consistent with that.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, I know many listeners are like, okay, where do I find Jason and what does he have to offer? So could you let the listeners know where they can find you and what you have?
Absolutely. I go by the social psychic as a handle on most social media. On Instagram, I'm at the_social_psychic. My website is www.thesocialpsychic.com. My law website, for anyone out there that wants to see my legal stuff, it's www.ciofalolaw.com. That's my legal name, CIOFALO law.com. I do insurance stuff and take on insurance companies on hurricanes and disaster work for homeowners, businesses, and whatnot. And then just basically you can find me. I have a pretty big presence on social media. My show is called The Social Psychic Radio Show. It's in its 6th season right now, and I'm on another show called Psychic Visions with my best friend Megan Kane with Electrocast Media, and that's on its 2nd season right now. And if anyone's interested in joining a paranormal network, we have a network called Paranormal Universe with Electrocast for anyone who's spiritual, has their own podcast, and they want to podcast in a safe place. We have that as well. So it's just various things I have that are available.
And I'll be sure to connect that all into the show notes so that people have easy access to you. At any time, listeners, if there was a tingle, if there was an opening, that is your limbic system letting you know Jason has something that would be informative. So connect with him. Just send a message. Just be curious. Allow your curiosity to be unleashed so that you can connect with Jason and that he may possibly be able to show you an opening within yourself that you didn't even know was there. So, Jason, I want to thank you so much for enriching myself and the listeners with your presence, your energy. It's always a delight to be in your presence.
Man, that pleasure is mine. I deeply appreciate you having me on, and I thank your audience for listening to our interview and our discussion.
Please remember to be kind to yourself.
Hey, you made it all the way here. I appreciate you and your time. If you found value in this conversation, please share it out. If there was somebody that popped into your mind, take action and share it out with them. It possibly may not be them that will benefit, it's that they know somebody that will benefit from listening to this conversation. So please take action and share out the podcast. You can find us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under Lift Oneself. And if you want to inquire about the work that I do and the services that I provide to people, come over on my website, come into a discovery call, liftoneself.com. Until next time, please remember to be kind and gentle with yourself. You matter.